Good afternoon, class. We're going to talk today about the importance of money in the economy. So to begin with, one of the main reasons why money is so critical to us and so important is that it encourages economic activity. We see increased production as a result of relying upon a system where we have money to buy goods and services versus a system where we might acquire goods and services in trade through a system of barter. One of the main problems with barter, or another way to say that, an advantage of relying upon money, is that we remove the so-called double coincidence of wants. Under systems of trade, direct trade, which is what barter is, just giving one good or service directly for another, not only do you need to find someone who has the product that you're interested in acquiring, that person must also be interested in acquiring what you have to trade. So for example, rather than me going out looking for lunch later today and just paying for it with money, I would need to go out and find someone who's willing to trade me some lunch in exchange for a lecture here on, supply and demand or something like this, right? That's a much more difficult proposition when we're talking about trade. And so money helps us in that it removes this double coincidence of wants. Of course, lots of different things have been used as money in different societies across time. The different types of money that we see should be classified here as either commodity money or fiat money. The money that we use here in the United States and the money we use in most modern societies today is fiat money. And what makes it such is that it's an item that is valuable to have, but only because it can be used to buy goods and services, right? When you're looking at a given dollar, for example, that's good to have, but aside from its use as money, dollars don't really do anything productive. That's what you're going to end up seeing with fiat money. In contrast, items that are commodity money, these are things that can be used as money, but also used in some other productive application as well. So think of things like salt, for example. That's been used as money. You can use it as such, and alternatively, you can also use it to season your food or preserve food or something like this. Gold, likewise, can be used as money and also used in the production of jewelry or something like this, right? So the difference between the two is whether or not money has a use independent of its application as money. All right, when we're thinking about why money is so important, we want to recognize that there's a variety here of essential functions of money, right? Advantages that we have when we're using money to facilitate economic activity. Right. So one great thing about money is that it serves as an effective store of value. Right. This is, I think, kind of a self-explanatory type of a term, but the idea here is that money will maintain its purchasing power over time. And dollars do a pretty good job of this, right? If you're paid $20 today, what you can actually get with that $20 is quite similar to what you'll be able to get a week from now or a year from now, or sometime in the future, right? Of course, dollars are not a perfect store of value in that we observe some inflation. So it's somewhat limited in that sense. Nevertheless, we think dollars do a pretty good job of maintaining their purchasing power over time, making them a good store of value. Money also serves as an effective unit of account, right? And what that means is that you can use money to express the value of all kinds of different products, goods and services out there, both expensive and cheap, right? Dollars do an excellent job of this, right? It's quite easy to express the price of something really expensive, like a car, versus something very cheap, like a stick of gum, right? So when money is serving as a unit of account, it's essentially being the metric or the way by which we're measuring value for something. Finally, money helps us in that it can serve as a medium of exchange. And this is just getting at this idea that to be effective, money has to be something that people are glad to accept. Something is widely accepted in exchange for goods and services. It's an effective medium of exchange. So that's what we're looking for in terms of money. Another big key for this particular unit is to have a good understanding of how we count the money supply and try to say something about how much money is actually floating around out there. There's two definitions that you're going to need to know pertaining to the money supply. Let me pull over the board. And we'll talk about these two. Right? So the first definition of the money supply is something called M1. And this is one that's always described as being the narrower or the narrowest of our definitions of money. And all that means is that it includes the fewest items. M1 is going to include with certainty the currency that's being held by the public. So in this case, we're talking about both paper money and coins held by the general public and significantly not deposited in some bank, something like that. So the money in your wallet, the money that you've got hidden under your mattress or something like that, that's the currency held by the general public. In addition to that, the value of all that money deposited in checking accounts at various banks is included in the money supply, and it's included in M1. Some textbooks will present traveler's checks in addition to these two. I think our textbook just includes these first two, currency held by the public and checking accounts, but traveler's checks is another third component that is sometimes cited as belonging to M1. Traveler's checks represent a really small share of M1. I think that's why sometimes it's left out. All right. M2 is the broader of our two definitions of the money supply that we're going to talk about. And it's going to include the following four things. Right? Straight away, maybe the most important thing to remember about M2 is that it includes everything in M1. Right? So necessarily, M2 is larger than M1, no matter what, because M1 is included. All those items in M1 are included in M2 also. In addition to that, we've also got some other items here. We also want to include the value of all money deposited in a savings account. We also want to include the value of all money that is deposited in a small denominated time deposit. This is effectively a CD, if you're familiar with that particular type of investment. Works very similar to an ordinary bank account, the difference being that with a time deposit or a CD, you need to promise to keep your money in that particular account for some specified amount of time, maybe a year or 6 months. And in exchange for that extra certainty, the bank is going to compensate you with higher interest than you would see otherwise. Right? So that's what a CD or a time deposit is. Small denominations of time deposits are included in M2. And then lastly, people will sometimes put money into so-called money market mutual fund accounts, right? Another way to potentially get a slightly better return on your money. In this case, potentially there's going to be minimum balances that have to be established, or there might be some promise that you have to make in terms of leaving your money in for a specified amount of time as well. These are going to show up in M2 as well. Right? So there you have it, two ways that we can count up the money supply.